So the first watch on this old money list is a timepiece I've had on my wish list for over 5 years. Seriously, I've probably tried this watch on at least 4 times, and every time I get so close, but I just can't pull the trigger. The reason being I've got already 60 watches in my collection I don't regularly wear. So yeah, to add another overpriced watch to my collection, my wife would kill me. But seriously, gents, this watch is not only absolutely beautiful, but its unique shape and history make it the perfect watch to kick off this list. You see, the origins of this watch go back to 1904. A Brazilian aviator named Alberto Santos Dumont. He was complaining to a friend of his how difficult it was to check the time whenever you were flying, whenever he had to pull out that pocket watch, and it wasn't even easy to read. Now it turned out his complaint wasn't falling on deaf ears. No, his buddy happened to be a watchmaker named Louis Cartier, and within a year he had designed and built the first Cartier Santos. Now what's interesting is this watch design's been around for about 120 years, but still, when people see this on a man's wrist, it grabs attention. First up, that square bezel. In a world of round bezels, it immediately stands out. Next up, despite its size, the watch actually wears really small because of how close it sits to the wrist. In fact, the flat design has always been one of the key features of the watch because it was made for function first. Now, there have been various iterations of the watch over the last 120 years, but in general, you're going to see this watch with Roman numerals and, in general, very legible. That last feature being incredibly important because it was first designed as a functional watch for aviators to be able to easily read the time. In today's video, gents, I'm sharing with you a list of timeless old money watches that every man needs to know. Now, for a watch to be old money, it doesn't have to be expensive. It also doesn't have to come from a brand that's been around for hundreds of years. No, when I'm talking old money, I'm talking a classic design that's going to be timeless. A watch that you can spend good money on now and know that in a decade, in 2 decades, in 50 years, when you pass it on to somebody else, that watch is still going to be functioning, it's going to be wearable, it is still going to be stylish. In fact, the watch I'm wearing today, which is incredibly high quality, is coming from a relatively unknown micro brand. Which one? Well, stick around. I'll reveal later in the video. And to prove my point, the next watch on this list can be found for well under $100. It might as well be the unofficial watch of the United States military, and pretty much any guy that's into extreme sports and needs accurate timekeeping. Released in 1983, this watch was specifically designed to be able to deal with vibration and shock. If you haven't guessed it, gents, I'm talking about the Casio G-Shock. Now, over the last 40 years, Casio has released a wide variety of different types and different styles of G-Shocks. But all of them share the lineage of the original one, which was made to take a licking and keep on ticking. Actually, that's not accurate. It's a quartz watch, so it doesn't technically tick, but I think you get the point. Now, you may be wondering, why do I consider this old money? Well, first up, there's all different types of G-Shock, so if you want to spend a little bit more money, they have become fashion statements. But for me, an old money watch is the original, and this is what Casio did right. They originated the idea of having that shock-resistant watch and having something made specifically for people that care about performance. For the guy that needed a little light, he needed a stopwatch, or for the kid that just wanted to look cool, I'm putting G-Shock on this list. Now, the next watch on this list is from a brand you expected to see on an old money list of watches. Of course, we're talking Rolex, but the watch I'm going to talk about is actually where it all started for Rolex back in 1926. You see, nowadays, whenever somebody wants to own a Rolex, the most popular is going to be by far the Submariner. But the Submariner isn't where it all started and isn't actually the most versatile of Rolex's watches. In fact, you could even argue the Submariner is a bit ostentatious and shouldn't even be on this list. However, for those in the know, the Rolex Oyster Perpetual is where it all started for the brand, and in many people's opinion, this is the perfect Rolex watch, especially if you're just getting started. And straight up, that's one of the things I really do like about this watch is it is their entry-level piece, yet when it comes from a watchmaking perspective, it is perfect in pretty much every regard. Now, let's talk about the history. Water resistance wasn't really a thing before 1926, and then the Oyster Perpetual hit the market. Now, the word perpetual refers to the fact that it is self-winding, but it was the oyster part, the fact that it was enclosed and it was waterproof. Not, well, you could say water resistant to a certain note. In any case, they got on everyone's radar when they did a stunt. There was a woman that had swam from across the English Channel. When she went to do it a second time, because, no one believes she did it, and, she's a woman, she's like, okay. And Rolex saw the opportunity. They said, hey, how about you wear this as a necklace when you're doing this swim? She did it, and all of a sudden, boom, they're getting all this media attention. It was groundbreaking at the time that such a delicate instrument could actually stand up to all that wear and tear in the water. Now, all that's cool. And the fact it was the first water-resistant resistant watch that was well known would probably put it on somebody's list of history watches. But why do we care about it now? Because of the design. It is still simply one of the most elegant, clean, and sophisticated watches a man can own from the Rolex line. That being said, if you want something that's a little bit more blingy, something that's going to be a little bit more expensive, over the years they've made variations with precious metals and with precious stones. And again, from a historical perspective, if you like the Submariner, if you like the Daytona, to know that actually all of this emerged out of the Oyster Perpetual is pretty cool, that you know you've owned the grandfather of those watches. The next watch on this list is from Jaeger LeCoultre. Jaeger LeCoultre, Jaeger LeCoultre, Jaeger LeCoultre. Guys, I'm a kid from a West Texas trailer park. I can't pronounce half this crap. In any case, this particular watch has been around since 1931. When it came out, it was a revolutionary design in actually the functionality of what it could do, and nowadays we consider it to be an Art Deco masterpiece. And like a lot of the old money watches on this list, it actually has a pretty cool story. So apparently there were these British officers that were playing polo, and they wanted a watch that could be worn on the field but could still somehow be protected, because the glass and the way that they were constructed at that time period made it very easy for them to get smashed up. Well, apparently that's where Jaeger LeCoultre came in and said, hey, let's go ahead and make the Reverso. So, as the name implies, this watch is reversible. Basically, you can flip it over and the glass dial right there is going to be right on the wrist, and the back of the watch, made out of metal, is what's exposed. Nowadays, this design seems obvious, but at the time, it was really unique. And what was also really cool about it is you could go, yeah, with that base metal back, or you could have an engraving on there. You could actually have a picture. There were a lot of things that you could do with this. So yeah, this was like the Apple Watch of the time. And nowadays, this watch still works because it's understated. It's simple. It's clean. This is a luxury design. And by the way, this is a pure dress watch. The band here, the vast majority of the time, is going to be leather, either in black or dark brown. You can get custom ones, but the overall size of the watch is relatively small. And again, that's something traditionally we also see in dress watches. And as you can imagine, with a 90-year history, this watch has seen tons of variations. That being said, the general classic look is going to be very close to the original. The next watch on this list is one of the most historic dive watches out there. Now, the history of this watch starts with the British military out of World War II. The company was making these waterproof watches for them. They really liked them. And in 1948, it decided on its 100-year anniversary of being a company, it wanted to commemorate that and put out a dive watch for the masses. Now, some of you guys may be thinking Rolex again, right? No, the Submariner didn't come out for 5 more years. The company I'm talking about is Omega, and the particular watch, the Seamaster. Now, in 1995, the Seamaster got a huge resurgence because of the movie GoldenEye. But decades prior to that, the Seamaster had built a reputation among watch wearers as simply a functional dive watch with a robust case with luminous hands, clear, visible markers, and a unidirectional rotating bezel for tracking dive time. Now, there are tons of variation of the Seamaster, and I have to say it doesn't retain its value super well, but it is still the classic dive watch. And pretty much no matter what style you get, this is going to be a classic old money watch. The next watch on this list is going to be a chronograph, a classic aviation watch that's been around for over 60 years. 1952 to be exact. The company, Breitling, they put out the watch, the Navitimer. Now, for anyone that flies, anyone that owns their own jet, anyone that just simply enjoys being up there in the clouds, they're going to know about the Navitimer. The reason is that this is more than just a watch. This was the watch made for aviators, made specifically as a tool with a built-in unique slide rule bezel. Basically, the Navitimer allows pilots to perform necessary flight calculations. So if you want to know your fuel consumption, your climb rate, you want to convert miles to nautical miles, all of this can be done with this tool that looks like a watch. And let's talk about size. Breitling in general makes large watches, so if you got a small wrist, and I'm one of those guys, I like Breitling, but I'm not going to own one of their watches because just the size is huge. And I know that they got smaller ones, but I keep looking at the Navitimer and I like it, but a little bit too big. For some of you bigger guys out there with huge wrists, check it out. Beautiful old money watch. Now, this next watch on the old money list is one of the more fun watches in my collection. I really need to wear it more often, and I love it because of the story, and I love it because I can wear it on my right wrist. Now, the watch model was released in 1969 by the company Tag Heuer. At its release, people loved it because of two distinctive features. First, and not most importantly, it was actually a square case, which was still relatively rare. And the other detail, which isn't minute, it was the world's first automatic chronograph. So with the design aspects, with the functional aspects, all being together in a unique package, this watch was primed to become an icon. And that happened in the 1971 film Le Mans. In that movie, the Tag Heuer Monaco was worn by Steve McQueen and will forever be associated with that movie and as a racing watch. Now, as it's been around for over 50 years, there have been many variations. I personally bought mine because it was the variation that Steve McQueen wore on his right hand because he is left-handed. But you see many that are made in the reverse style, made for people that want to wear on the traditional left wrist. The only thing I will say and warn you about with this watch is it wears larger than what it is. The square case is thick, the glass makes it even thicker, and all that combines to a watch that feels relatively heavy for its size. That being said, it's absolutely beautiful. Now that I'm making this video, I am probably going to wear this watch home and wear it for the rest of the weekend. The next watch on this list hit the scene in 1972 and changed the luxury market. It did that with a groundbreaking design using nothing more than stainless steel. Up to that point, all luxury watches were being made from luxury materials. It also had an octagonal bezel, exposed screws, and its integrated bracelet was very radical from anything else that was out in the luxury market. Basically, this watch created a new luxury sports market for the modern audience who wanted something different. The brand I'm talking about, gentlemen, is Audemars Piguet, and the watch is the Royal Oak. Now, over the years, AP has released tons of different designs, but the Royal Oak continues to be a symbol of the brand's innovation and is a favorite among watch connoisseurs, celebrities, and those in the know. Now, me personally, I don't own one. I've never been that attracted to them, but as you guys probably know a lot more about watches than I do, I would love to hear from you guys down in the comments. What do you guys think of AP? Should they have even been on this list? What do you think? And while you're down there, if you object with anything I had on this list or if I'm missing something, let me know in the comments below. I always love hearing from you guys. Now, at this point, you may be wondering, well, how do I assess my personal style? Well, gents, if you didn't know, here at Real Men Real Style, we've developed what we call the Style Score. We've got a really quick and easy quiz that you can take, and at the end of it, you'll be given a specific number and areas that we think you can improve upon. Seriously, it's just a fun little test that we put together, and I'll link to it down in the description of today's video. Oh, and the watch I'm wearing today is made by a relatively unknown micro brand that hails from St. Louis. So years ago, I was doing my research on micro brands, and these guys kept popping up as the go-to, just the most comfortable bracelet. They were using Swiss movements, and from what everyone said, these guys were punching way above their price point. Now, I wanted a watch that looked a little bit more like a field watch. At the same time, I wanted at least 100 meters of water resistance. This watch was actually 150 meters. And already owning a Rolex Explorer, I knew that I wanted something with a little bit thinner of a case, which the case on this watch is about 9.6 millimeters. Also, I wanted the size under 40 millimeters, and this case going across was 38.5 millimeters. That being said, when I saw the dial, just beautiful dial right there with the blue mixed in with that gorgeous brown leather strap, I knew I had to have this watch. Gentlemen, the watch I'm talking about is the Monta Triumph, which, by the way, I like this watch so much, I ended up buying one of their Ocean Kings as well, and the owners of the company are now friends of mine, so I'll give them a shout out because they are an awesome company that stand behind their products, and they're one of those emerging brands, again, that I think when you get one of their watches, you're going to be just amazed by the quality. And gents, all the watches I talked about in today's video, I'm going to link to them down in the description of today's video. Now, gents, if you're enjoying today's video and you want to see more, because I had a list of actually like 30 different watches I could have talked about, I want to hear from you down in the comments. Say, Antonio, I want to see a part 2. But in the meantime, if you're curious about a brand that is a fraction of the cost of Rolex, but 10 times better, check out this video right here. Okay, it's arguable. They're not 10 times better at marketing. They suck at marketing. But when it comes to the functionality, when it comes to the build quality, guys, this company is second to none. Who am I talking about? Check them out right here.